having a business that allows me to be flexible and fluid with what I'm doing and what I'm offering has been amazing, because once again, I have ADHD, so my brain needs a lot to keep it going.
Bring them in on the rail at a jog, please. On the rail at a jog.
So finding a work-life balance has always been a little bit of a challenge for me. It's hard to not be on all the time. And that was a very, very challenging lesson for me to learn, because I was, answering messages in the middle of the night and editing all night, which I still do, but I try to do a little bit less. I still try to sleep. And just always constantly going and going and going. And it was very hard to say no to any possible opportunity, to the point where I never got to just be Kelsey. I was always Kelsey from Norfleet. So now I try to find some times where I can just be Kelsey.
Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of On the Rail podcast. Today's guest is pretty cool and exciting. She runs her own business within the industry. So we're super excited to get to chat with her and talk about maybe some interesting and different things that not a lot of us get to talk about. So without further ado, I will let her introduce herself and kind of what she's been doing within the industry and how she got started.
All right. Hi, everyone. My name is Kelsey Keathly. I own Norfleet Marketing and Photography. I grew up showing state and regional level paint and pinot shows in New York and Zone 7. But now I live in the cornfields of Northern Illinois. I always tell everyone I live in the last cornfield before Chicago. But I travel all over the country photographing horses and their people. I've done a little bit of everything in the industry, even though now I currently do portrait photography and graphic design. I have shown, I've written for publications, I've ring stewarded, I've worked for show clothing vendors, I've shaped hats. I had a short stint as a horse show makeup artist. I wanted to be a judge, but that didn't work out. So I ended up photographing horse shows. I did more than 50 horse shows in 12 states in 4 years before stepping away from shows at the end of last year. And like I said, I now focus on portrait photography, a little bit of media photography at some of the major shows, and graphic design work.
You do wear many hats, no pun intended, because I know you do the hat shaping thing too.
Yes,
right?
I wear so many hats.
So what age were you? Maybe you said it. What age were you when you first started showing?
I was, I think 4 or 5 when I started showing, but I'm actually a 3rd generation equestrian. I'm currently raising a 4th generation equestrian. So it's very much a family thing for me and something that I've been around as long as I can remember. So I was 4 or 5 when I started riding and showing and have never stopped. I think the longest my family has been gone without owning a horse was maybe a couple months while on the hunt for our next horse. And we currently own 4 in 2 different states. So it's fun.
Do you have any at home with you?
No, unfortunately, I have nothing here in Illinois, but I'm only in Illinois about half the time anyways. My old gelding, Investors Norfleet, who the business is named after, is currently semi-retired up at Albion College in Michigan. So he's only about 4 hours away from me. And then my sister has 2 minis that are currently with Debbie Jones in North Texas, while my sister is currently deployed. She's in the Army. So her minis are down in Texas, getting ready for her to be able to show them when she comes back stateside. And then I have a 2-year-old, coming 3-year-old ranch and all-around prospect with Jenna Seal in Granbury, Texas.
Did you just get like a Palomino for your daughter?
Yes.
Or is that just, okay.
Well, that's Ritz. Her show name is Suddenly Rugged. She is, I'm so excited for her. She's bred by my best friend, currently in training with my best friend. I've known Jenna for 10 years, not Jenna, this Jenna, but Jenna Seal. And I bought her as a weanling, kind of an impulse purchase. And she is going to have a ranchy foundation on her. And then she'll be the horse that gets me back into the show pen. And she'll also be my daughter's first like real show horse.
Very cool. I saw the photos of her and your daughter, and they were precious.
Yes. Oh my God. Kayleigh's obsessed with her. Watching, like, Norman is my heart horse. I have owned Norman, my paint gelding, since he was 2 and I was 10. So we're going on 19 years next year. And watching my daughter fall in love with Ritz and Ritz become her heart horse, like in real time, was pretty incredible.
Do you have any favorite events? So when you were showing as a kid and growing up, did you do the all around? And then what are you hoping to get into when you get back into the show pen?
I definitely did the all around. I was your typical pinot girl when I really got into showing, like early teens. We started doing pinot when I was like 13 or 14. And we did everything. We did literally all of the things. Poor Norman would start with the showmanship in the morning, and we do, because Pinot has everything. They have Hunter Under Saddle, Western Pleasure, Discipline Braille, Bareback Equitation, all of it. We would basically do all of it until Norman told me that he quit. And then, which he did, he's investor bred. He would tell me very loudly that he quit. So we did that for a while. And then as he got older and I got smarter, we started focusing on the showmanship, the horsemanship, and the ranch riding with him. And that's kind of what we did at the end of my youth years, moving into being an amateur when we were under the guidance of Adam D'Agostino with Empire Performance Horses, who's now the coach at Albion, where Norman is semi-retired. My favorite is showmanship. That is my jam. It is my favorite class. I love it so much. I am short and don't necessarily have your traditional horsemanship body. So as much as I love the like technical aspects of it, I always found that like being 5'1" with a 28-inch inseam, I don't always have the prettiest picture in the horsemanship. But the showmanship, I could go out there and pull out my own style. And it was so fun. And owning Norman for so long, we had that connection where like we were there. It was amazing. I loved showing that horse. His thing was the ranch riding, though. So when we get back into it with Ritz, we'll be doing the ranch classes. And then I told Jenna, if she can't do showmanship, I don't want her. So I will be doing ranch riding and showmanship and probably some horsemanship with her.
Cool. The ranch stuff is obviously, we all see it just growing and growing and growing.
Oh, it's insane. I love it. It's so fun to watch. I'm really excited for her in the ranch rail classes because she's by a Sudden Holiday, who is a son of RL Vesta Sudden. So she has the RL legs, but she's like cow horse bred on the bottom. So she's kind of gritty. So I think she'll be really cool on the rail.
That'll be exciting to watch.
I'm excited.
So with your business, you mentioned that your business is named after your heart horse. Can you kind of like walk through the beginning stages of your business and kind of how you've transformed it into what it is now today?
Absolutely. So I started Norfleet in 2011 doing graphic design work. I had no idea what I was doing, but I designed vinyl banners. Like, remember when everyone had the like custom vinyl banners on their stalls at shows? I was one of the first ones to really start doing that. And it paid my entry fees, which was all it needed to do at that point in time. And I never thought it would get to the point it's at now. So I started in 2011 with design work, shifted from doing vinyl banners into doing more logos and ad design. In 2015, I had my first spread in the Equine Chronicle, which was exciting and a life goal of mine. And then in 2016, I was working for Go Horse Show, and I was going to be doing candids for them at the Congress. And I didn't just want to use my cell phone anymore, so I purchased my first camera off Amazon for like $400 as a Canon T5. I still have it. It's going to be my daughter's first camera when I'm okay with her, being able to break something and not feel bad about it. So I went out to my first Congress and wandered around with my camera. I had no idea what I was doing. I was still shooting on auto, but I was hooked at that point with show photography and went back that winter. I was a senior in college at Casanova College in New York at the time. And I practiced my timing and lighting and shooting on manual and all of that at intercollegiate shows over the winter. made my friends model for me for portrait sessions. And then in the summer of 2017, I started the photography side of my business. So I went from Norfleet Marketing to Norfleet Marketing and Photography. And it grew from there. I found out I was pregnant in January of 2018 and was at that point at a sales and marketing job at a print shop in Syracuse, New York, and I hated it. I literally lasted 3 months working in the real world and then came back to the horse industry. That first year, I think we did 15 shows. While I was super pregnant, it was me and my then boyfriend, and built it from there. Really got into the show photography side of things to the point where in our second year, so in 2019, we shot the Roan Horse World Show. I think it was the first year that it happened. Shot some pretty big shows. I did Fall Color Classic in 2020 when it was the #1 APHA show that year. It was a wild journey. Like, I had a team of, I had probably 25, 30 people I could pull from across the country. And it was so fun. Like, I started with just loading up as much as we could into our Ford Escape. I remember we bought our first laptop for our first horse show on the way to the horse show because my boyfriend at the time, didn't know how to work my MacBook. And then it got to the point where I had a truck and trailer that I would bring to shows with me. But at the end of 2021, I was at that point a single mom and was realizing that being on the road as much as I wasn't fulfilling for me anymore, when it was no longer something we did as a family and a goal for us to have as a family, something that we could, eventually wanted him to quit his job and we just both go full time with Norfleet. But when that was no longer relevant, I realized I needed to do something to be home a little bit more, and made the shift from most of my income and most of my time being spent at horse shows to doing a lot more portrait work. And I'm still in the process of that shift. So going into my goal this year was just to have enough portrait work that I could get myself back on my feet, figure out what my next step was, get myself back in a good place mentally, work on some physical things, all of that, so that next year I can add back in more graphic design work and a few new portrait trips to different places, and not only make enough to survive, but also enough to start showing again. So that's where we're at now.
What's the difference in your portraiture work versus what you were doing at shows? I mean, I assume shows you probably did some rail stuff. Did you do the backdrop photos and all of that at the shows too?
I did everything. So I've done portrait work since the beginning. It just wasn't a huge focus of mine. I've done primarily portrait trips. I've offered portraits at shows, all of that. But being so busy at shows, I just couldn't do as much portrait work. But when I was doing horse shows, I had the backdrop. I offered on-site and online sales. I did a lot. I really prioritized candids. I always told my second shooters, you know what, your first priority, make sure you're getting a good shot. All my girls knew how to get the ideal shot in the show pen, but then I let them go and have fun with it. Get the artsy stuff, have fun, do something a little bit different. Feel free to experiment with lighting and shots and all of that. And that was really cool. We definitely got a lot of recognition for that. I really made it a big point to make sure publications got candids during shows and that we were able to share a lot of those, and even did some candid-based calendars at the end of the year. It was a lot of fun. And being able to understand lighting and emotion and connection has definitely helped with the portrait side of things. And I think the portrait side of things also helped then with the candids. It goes hand in hand. But now with portraits, I still do your typical marketing, sales, photography, confirmation shots, all of that. But I really love capturing the bond and the connection between a person and their horse, and also just finding insane, crazy lighting and making fun stuff happen with that.
So your portrait work is still largely all equine based, or do you do family photos and that type of stuff too?
I don't know how to talk to normal people.
Okay. Fair.
I
Totally
don't
fair.
think I'm thinking back through everyone I've worked with, and I genuinely don't think I have worked with anyone that doesn't have some tie to the horse industry. Even every family session I've done has been either with horses or people that I met through horses. And I've only photographed 2 weddings. One was for my first ever intern, and the first one was for Ariel Higgins, who is the coach at Middle Tennessee State University, and the second one was for my first ever intern. So both horse people. I don't know how normal people work. I will stick with my horse people every day of the week.
I think we all can relate to that and feel that.
Yes, absolutely.
For sure. So with that, what difficulties have you seen like running your own business just with like, as you said, within the horse industry, like talking to horse people and stuff like that? What has been the most challenging part about it?
Oh God, there's a lot. Something important to note is that I have very severe clinical ADHD. So a lot of this is in part owning your own business. And a lot of this comes from the fact that I have a neurodivergent brain. So finding a work-life balance has always been a little bit of a challenge for me. It's hard to not be on all the time. And that was a very, very challenging lesson for me to learn because I was, answering messages in the middle of the night and editing all night, which I still do, but I try to do a little bit less. I still try to sleep and just always constantly going and going and going. And it was very hard to say no to any possible opportunity to the point where I never got to just be Kelsey. I was always Kelsey from Norfleet. So now I try to find some times where I can just be Kelsey. Imposter syndrome is insane. It's very much a thing. I had it coming on this podcast. I was like, oh my gosh, they've talked to so many amazing people. Why do they want to talk to me? But that is definitely a thing. It's crazy because some of the people that I used to feel the most anxious about and have the worst imposter syndrome around are now some of my closest friends. So that's pretty cool, but it's also wild to think that people that I've looked up to are now people that I know fairly well. But yeah, the biggest thing is definitely that work-life balance and being able to separate yourself and your worth from your business. Like just because someone books with someone else and not me, that doesn't mean they hate me. That doesn't mean I'm a horrible person. That doesn't mean I'm bad at my job. It just means that maybe their schedule lined up better or they fit the budget better or whatever it might be. Trying to not base my self-worth on the success of my business and keep myself separate from the business was definitely a challenge.
I think I can relate to that a lot. I always feel like I need to be in a constant state of doing something. And then when I'm not doing something, that's when I feel like I'm not doing enough to be making it somewhere. I feel like all three of us could probably agree with that, just running our own businesses.
And when I spent all of my time at horse shows before. When you're at 15, 16, 17 shows a year and all of them are 4+ days, your entire life is the horse show industry and you're always on. And for someone who has a neurodivergent brain, that becomes very, very exhausting and can definitely create some pretty negative thought spirals and some pretty unhealthy coping mechanisms to be able to deal with all of that. So I definitely think stepping away from horse shows and only really going to the shows where I knew that Kelsey, was wanted there and not just Kelsey from Norfleet was wanted there was pretty cool. I think I only went to 5 horse shows this year. It was wild.
Just dropping, 15 to 5 would be a vast difference just in your time alone.
Yeah. And the ones I went to before, it was I don't think I had been at a horse show without being there in an official capacity where I had to get to the show, set up my booth, manage my staff, deal with customers, all of that. I'd be at my booth at midnight sorting photos, a couple drinks in, and people were coming over wanting to ask questions, wanting to view photos. And I had to remain professional Kelsey from Norfleet. So all the shows I went to over this past year, since I stepped away from horse shows, it was I did candids and portrait sessions and shaped hats at a paint show in Pennsylvania in May. And then I went to another horse show in New York in May just for fun. I didn't even have my camera there. I literally was just playing horse show wife for my best friend. All I had to do was put on his client's makeup and pep talk them as they went into showmanship. It was a wild change from previous years. And then another show, again, just hanging out and doing his client's makeup and taking candids. And that was it. I haven't been at a horse show in official capacity.
I feel that so much. I have come to learn in my, old age adult life now, probably like my mid 30s already, but I could have never imagined just being either. I mean, I like going to shows to cheer on my barn mates and whatever. I always loved a show, but I actually almost enjoy just going to the shows to hang out more so than I do at the pressure show. So it's always like something you're kind of asking yourself, like, what is it about the showing? And, different shows vary on that and the pressure situations. I do think I could be an owner. Like, I don't want to not own horses, and like would be fun to watch somebody show your horse. But there is a lot to be said for just going and making a horse show an actual kind of vacation or something. Because when you're actively participating, it's not usually a vacation.
Yeah, like, don't get me wrong. I am so excited to go back to horse shows and actually be showing and competing. Like, watching other people do well and like have fun and show day in and day out, you get the worst like FOMO.
Mm-hmm.
And like the worst, like, I just wanted to show a horse again, and I will get to do that again next year. I cannot wait. I am so excited. Like, it's been 5 years since I've actually shown, and like I had to be at horse shows as a professional so much to the point where like we were at that paint show I was at in July, and thank God for Will Abel, because I was there at the show with him, and he would look at me and be like, okay, are you Kelsey right now, or are you Kelsey from Norfleet? I'd pick up my camera and be like, I'm going to go be Kelsey from Norfleet. He's like, you got this. You're good at your job. Go have fun. But it's nice to be able to decide which hat to wear, decide if I'm just there cheering on my friends and my barn mates, or if I am Kelsey from Norfleet, rather than having to wake up 7 a.m. God, what am I saying? 7 a.m. Like, wake up like 5 a.m., go set lights, get everything ready, finish sending out emails from the day before, all of that, and then have to like have my happy customer face on, and then get home and like literally on the drive home have people calling me wondering when they were going to get the picture that they literally just ordered. And I have to kindly be like, I'm literally driving. Please be patient with me. I am a person.
I totally have that same feeling with like social media as a whole right now. It's one thing to just it be like your personal social media, because a lot of the horse world is on Facebook, and it's a way that we all interact and keep up with things. But I basically run an online business myself. So you got to have some, I don't know, face on, social media about your business. And that shifts the paradigm of it just being like fun and engaging, like when you want to be it, to where you have to show up as a professional when you don't really want to. And I'm really struggling with that myself right now, is just feeling the burnout of it being a business versus just a personal thing.
And so many people, like, don't get me wrong, there's so many amazing people in the horse industry that like when I step back from horse shows were so understanding and so happy for me and so excited and so supportive. But there were also people who just didn't get it and didn't understand why I stepped back, because it got to the point where, I mean, this is going to sound like very dramatic, but at the end, like my last few horse shows that I did, I like would schedule time to go cry in the trailer. Like my team knew, like Kelsey will have an alarm go off, everyone leave the trailer, go for a walk, or like Kelsey's going to go like drive to the back corner of the property in her truck and just like go scream or cry or listen to music very loudly or do something just to release, to then come back and put on the happy face and continue being Kelsey from Norfleet. Because it does get very, very exhausting having to be that every day. So being able to kind of step back in and figure out who I am in the horse industry and where I fit in and what I want to do has been really cool. And I found that it also helped me connect with people that view things the same way and have a similar mindset. And so many of those people have then become my portrait clients or my design clients. And it's great. And I love it.
Do you feel like you restructuring your business then from focusing primarily on the show photography side to now just doing like portrait and some graphic design has helped with all of the burnout feelings that you were having?
Yes. Oh my goodness. Yes. It makes it so much easier to make my schedule and to kind of, rather than going for the full year and just being like, okay, I have to get through this month, I can go more quarterly with what my schedule is and with what I'm focusing on. So if I'm, like going into this fall, normally fall is a very busy time for portrait photographers, but I decided, you know what, I really want to make this design shift going into next year. I need to take some time to regroup and kind of focus on myself a little bit more. So I didn't plan as many portrait trips. I didn't travel as much, which is weird for a photographer because fall is normally busy season, but I took that time off and just kind of hung out. And when I say time off, like I still spent time at Congress. I've done like 3 or 4 portrait trips this fall. Like it hasn't been nothing, but it's been a little bit more time home. And that has been so nice. And that's not a luxury I would have had with show photography, because with show photography, your schedule's set pretty much at the beginning of the year and you're still adding things as the year goes. So being able to kind of shift and adjust based on my needs and my family and things like that is definitely a luxury that I did not have as a show photographer.
How has it been like for you to set those boundaries with yourself? It's not really setting boundaries with other people as much as it is just being like, no, I'm not going to work. I'm not going to. I mean, I personally, I feel guilty a lot of times if I'm not working like every minute of the day. If I like all these TV series that people talk about, I'm like, I haven't seen one of them. I've never seen an episode of, Yellowstone, legitimately. So I'm
same.
like,
yeah, same.
So I'm trying to get better about telling myself, like, it's okay to not be like grinding 24/7, 365 and set some like downtime for you. So how has that worked for you?
So thankful for the people in my life that have made it so that I can find that kind of balance. And also for the fact that even though I have no friends here in Northern Illinois, except for my ex-mother-in-law, who I love very, very much, I have friends all over the country. So if I'm traveling for a portrait trip, I can also put some time with friends in there as well. So that's been amazing. Just being able to bring one of my best friends to come get yours at a portrait session and then go get dinner afterwards, or take a day off from portraits while I'm in New York and just hang out. And like literally, I was in New York. I still have family in New York. My best friend is in New York, so I'm there all the time. I was there a couple weeks ago and I spent a whole day at the barn just cleaning stalls, and it was great. I never thought I would be happy to just clean stalls, because exactly a year before that, I had been at the 3rd show in a row. Like I'd been on the road for, I think it was like 20 out of 30 days in the month of September in 2020. And like being able to September of this year, or I guess it would have been October this last trip, just go hang out at the barn, clean stalls, and then like while he gave lessons, sit in the tack room and work on a logo design. Like that was really cool. And I never knew A, that I would be capable of that, and B, that I needed that. Like I thought if I didn't have my schedule completely filled from the first of the month to the end of the month with horse shows or portraits or anything like that, that I was a failure. Because so many of us in this industry, whether we're anyone who works in the industry, whether you're a trainer, whether you're a vendor, whatever you do, we were busy as a badge of honor. Like if you are not fully booked, you are failing in some way. But kind of shifting myself from that mindset of like, if I'm not fully booked, I have failed, to I have enough booked this month that I can reach my financial goals. So with that extra time that I have, I'm going to go hang out. And I'm going to go enjoy myself. And I'm going to go to Texas and ride my horse. That's been pretty cool. I never knew I could do that. And I never knew it was so fun, but it is. And I recommend it.
And it's like the world's not ending yet either. I mean, like you're starting to take more time for yourself. And I'm, like I said, I'm trying to get better about this myself too. But it's like you do take a little bit of downtime and it's like nothing really happens. Like,
yeah,
it's not like, everything craters around you, which is how anxious it feels like when you're thinking about it.
Yeah. Most of my friends are also professionals in the industry in some way, shape, or form, whether they're trainers, they're other photographers, whatever. So we'll, check in on each other and be like, so what's on the list for today? And, send the list of what we want to get done and then check in at the end of the day. And it's like, oh, well, I only did this. It's like, that's actually a very big thing. Like if I have this, and this on the list and I only did half of them, I still did them. Or there will be days where I'm like, I thought I was going really well, but all I ended up doing was answering emails and like recording some TikToks. That was me like Monday of this week. I just like batch recorded TikToks and answered emails when I really wanted to like work on a couple logo designs, but I just didn't have the brain power for it. And I was complaining to my friend after that about like, I really feel like I had a very unproductive day. Like, I feel like I didn't get a lot done. Like, there's so much more I could have done. And he was like, dude, you literally did like 3 weeks worth of content creation and answered emails. Like, that's still something. Like, you still did a good job. And also you seem to forget that like over the weekend, you finished 2 logo drafts and like revamp part of your website. So like, give yourself a break. So I guess having good people in your corner that also remind you that you're good at your job and you're not a failure for taking things slow has been amazing.
Especially when you wear all the hats for your business. Like you
Yes.
are in charge of all of it. So,
Yes. I used to have an assistant when I was doing horse shows, and she handled a lot of my order fulfillment and answering emails and things like that. Like, as someone with ADHD, doing the small tasks is very stressful and very hard for me. It's hard for me to start and stop tasks. So I've had to learn to be proud of myself for any little successes that I have, because while they might seem like a little success to someone on the outside, they're a big success for me. And then also realizing that like editing 3 sessions in a week is actually really good, even though that seems like a normal thing for me. Like, even though it doesn't seem like a big accomplishment, like that's actually something that's actually like really good.
So on that note, what are you most passionate about? Is it the design work or the photography side? Or what do you enjoy doing the most within your business?
I feel like I go through phases, which is why I'm so happy I do what I do, because I'm able to kind of like shift and keep everything very fluid as my interests shift and as the industry shifts. And as I get burned out with one thing, I can shift my attention elsewhere. That has been fantastic. So I guess I don't really know which I like more. Right now, I'm really loving ad design, and I'm really starting to get back into some logo design and branding work. But for a while, the thought of like even opening Illustrator was too much for me. Like, when the world shut down in 2020 and I wasn't doing horse shows and I wasn't doing portraits, I really leaned into the design side of my business a lot more. And I think I did a rebrand for like almost every equine photographer. Like, I think I did like 30 or 40 logo designs and rebrands for equine photographers. And now like I can't do it. I still love it. I'll still, do logo work and branding for photographers, but it doesn't light my heart on fire like it used to. So I think having a business that allows me to be flexible and fluid with what I'm doing and what I'm offering has been amazing, because once again, I have ADHD. So my brain needs a lot to keep it going.
That reminds me of something I heard once. I went to a conference last spring in Arizona, and one of the speakers said something to the effect of like changing the direction your business goes or what you prioritize, or whether it's business or life or horses or whatever, will apply it to everything here. But said that doesn't mean it failed or there's something wrong with you. It just is like seasons of life. Or seasons, that even throughout the year that moves. And it's like you can change your priorities and focus, and it's perfectly okay. And up until that point, I was just like, I always felt uncomfortable about that. But that makes so much sense to me. It's like, we're not the same human we were 6 months ago or 2 years ago or 5 years ago. You could really apply it to anything. But that makes sense with like horses too.
I think for me, at the core of it, what I like about my business, is that it's flexible and it's fluid, but also everything I do allows me to build a connection with someone who is like me and make them feel confident. Like, whether I'm designing an ad, whether I'm making someone a logo, whether I'm doing a portrait session with them, or I'm photographing them at a horse show, I want people to walk away from their experience with me feeling more confident than they did when they came to me. And I really like that no matter what I'm doing within my business, I can make people feel like a badass. And that's pretty cool. It's kind of like a superpower.
Yeah, that's the common thread of everything you do, is that feeling you give people.
I think that's why I gravitated toward like horse show makeup too for a while, and why I worked for show clothing vendors, and why I enjoy hat shaping, because no matter what, like whenever I'm interacting with someone within this industry, which can be like, this industry can be horrible. Like, it will chew you up and spit you out if you give it the chance. It will take, like, we are literally paying people to judge us.
Literally.
Like literally the amount of like anxiety and imposter syndrome and all of that everyone in the horse industry feels on a daily basis is insane. So if I can be one tiny part of making them feel like they fit and making them feel like they belong and they're valued, whether that's by like, you know, designing an ad for them that looks really cool and they never thought they'd have their ad in the Equine Chronicle and now they have a really, really cool ad in the Equine Chronicle, or I'm doing a portrait session for them and they never viewed themselves that way, but they get their gallery back and they just feel so incredible because they're seeing these like insane pictures of them with their heart horse. I want to give people that. I want to make people feel that way because it doesn't happen all the time in this industry.
Not at all, unfortunately. Jenna always says, well, I think other people say as well, but we're always better together. And I feel like we forget that sometimes. So it's cool seeing, you know, a barn get lit up and excited about their ads coming together and they all, you know, are cohesive and they match and they feel like a team. That's always something that's super exciting to watch as well.
Yes, I love it. My favorite thing is when it's like someone's first ad. Like, they don't really know what we're doing. They don't know how it's supposed to go. And they're just like, make it something cool. And then it like exceeds their expectations. And that's always fun.
Yeah, your first ad is almost like your first horse. Not quite
Yeah.
that level,
Yeah.
but it's the same kind of like excitement. Just like, holy crap, this is really happening for me. And I think it's easy to lose sight of that as we go on.
Yes. Like, I think a lot of people, like every single ad in the Equine Chronicle or Go Horse Show or anywhere, like there's a story behind that team. Like, every team in the show pen has a story. And I think when you're getting to know people on that more personal level, whether it be through a portrait session or through designing them an ad and learning about what it took for them to get there and all of that, like, it's just really cool. Like, you lose when you're seeing the numbers and you're so worried about where you're placing and all of that, you seem to lose sight of the fact that like those other people in the pen with you, like they have a story, they came from somewhere, they also have their goals. It's kind of cool.
So on that note, do you have any tips for anyone wanting to kind of maybe get into the photography side or even the design side? Do you have any tips for any beginners out there?
Yeah, first and foremost, you don't need to go to college for designer photography to be a designer or a photographer. I have a business degree. I took one film photography class in community college that I almost failed. And then I've never taken a design class. Everything I do has been self-taught, trial and error. My early work for both photography and design was horrendous, absolutely horrible, really, really bad. But through a lot of trial and error and practice and evaluation and YouTube tutorials, I got to the point where I could build a successful business out of that. But having a business degree, having taken marketing classes was incredible. I went to Casanova College, which is in the hills of upstate New York, about 30 minutes from Syracuse. So I majored in business management with a specialization in equine business management. So we took equine specific business classes, which was very, very cool. A lot of times in like your traditional business classes, they don't act like the horse industry is like valid or feasible. Like, they don't understand it. So taking classes with other, like sitting and writing practice business plans next to people who are writing business plans for businesses they have now and seeing that growth, seeing that success was really cool. Like, when I was in New York last, I photographed a girl who I went to college with, and we both sat in our BU 360 class, which is our like principles of equine business management. And she wrote the business plan for her hunter jumper business that she now runs. And I wrote the business plan for Norfleet Marketing and Photography, which I now run. So I definitely recommend, if you don't get a business degree, at least take business classes, marketing classes, find a business mentor, listen to business podcasts, focus more on the business side of things, because probably 80% of what I do within my business is not actually photography or design. It is marketing, social media, planning, client communications, accounting, all of the boring things. It's not just going out and taking pictures or throwing cool ads together. You have to know how to people.
Have you always been creative and artistic as far as like the design side and even seeing the right portraits? Has that just been a natural
Yes.
gift you've had? Because I am not. I have none of that.
I remember being like 12, 13, 14 years old, taking my mom's point and shoot camera out to the barn and photographing my friends and my sisters and like trying to get my sister to take pictures of me with Norman, and trying to plan outfits and things like that from like a very young age, and taking that same point and shoot camera to our county fair and taking pictures of everyone there. Even tried starting a like equine based magazine. Actually, it was called On the Bit, similar to On the Rail, back in like probably 2010, like 2009, 2010, something like that. Started doing that so I could do like page layouts and design and all of that. So it's definitely been something that's been in my background and something I always wanted to do. I also really wanted to be a judge. That was like my life goal. I really wanted to judge horse shows, but I have chronic pain and I didn't want to have a bad pain day and be the reason that someone had a bad day because I couldn't focus enough to place their class how it was supposed to be.
That's noble of you, I think, to have the foresight to think that.
I ring stewarded once for a judge that also had chronic migraines and watched her accidentally place a class backwards because she couldn't, like her vision was messed up and she wasn't feeling well. And I was like, I don't want to do that. I don't want to be that person. So I'll find another way to be at horse shows every weekend, which is what drew me to show photography. Because I could, if I was having a bad day, if I was in pain, I could go take a break and step away for a minute and let my second shooters do their job. And that was part of the reason I did that, was because it kept me at horse shows, but I could still work through my own issues without ruining someone's day.
Those days are long too at horse shows.
Yes. Oh my God.
So
definitely have had some like 15-hour trail days.
Yeah. It's crazy to me that we talk about some of the numbers dwindling, but the shows themselves seem to run longer regardless of the number, if that makes sense. But
yeah, it's crazy.
Jenna, did you have any questions of your own that you...
No, I think like you've said so many things that are relatable for us as, well, I don't want to speak for Liz, but Liz and I have had conversations about this type of stuff too, between the two of us, you know, being, you know, business owners and young-ish females.
You are still young.
Yes, you are.
Thanks, guys. And, you know, Liz and I are kind of taking a year or two off from showing horses for, you know, multiple reasons. And one of them is building our businesses, but also, you know, just whenever you go so hard on any one thing, whether it is the business or it is showing as hard as you can or putting so much pressure on yourself, it's like, it's hard to not hit rock bottom and like feel the burnout. And then you kind of got to like swing the pendulum back the other way. So I think we're,
yes,
you know, we're all in a, you know, trying to learn the process of life and figure things out.
Yeah.
Go.
And it's okay to do that too. I think realizing that like it, like allowing myself to accept the fact that it was okay to not be at horse shows every weekend and that they could replace me, because they did. Every show I used to shoot has a photographer again. Like I was replaceable. And honestly, knowing that you're replaceable in that context is kind of refreshing. Like there will be someone else to shoot that horse show. I don't need to do it. I don't need to be the martyr. I don't need to make that sacrifice if I wasn't truly enjoying it. The horse show will not end if I am not the photographer.
There's probably a lot of other people out there, just given that I think this type of personality is probably common in people that show horses. And, you know, because most of them are pretty successful in life and, you know, like successful in the show pen. And so you put a lot of pressure on yourself to do everything so right, so well all the time. So I'm sure there are people that are going to listen to this that can probably identify with it too.
Yeah, like no matter what it is, it's okay to take a step back. It's okay to focus on yourself. There will always be new opportunities. There will always be new things that come up. And what comes next might be better than where you were at before. Like I get to focus on my daughter a lot now. And I get to watch her fall in love with horses. And I get to watch her go into the show pen for the first time. And that's been really cool. Like being able to see that has been amazing. And I'm excited to see that go more. And if I was just focusing on horse shows, I wouldn't have the ability to focus on her to that capacity. I couldn't be a show photographer and a mom.
A show photographer and a show mom.
Yeah. God, that poor kid.
I do think it's interesting that given all the pressure that we do put on ourselves, it's kind of cool to see these changes in like the way life ebbs and flows and what changes are always happening. And I always feel like there's at least one reason why things happen the way they do. So it's always good to have that cherry on top. Like for you, you get to watch your daughter now grow into showing horses and sharing a horse even because you'll be showing as well. So I don't know. There's always that cherry on top.
Yes. And my mom wants to get back. My mom wants to get back into the show pen. My youngest sister, who's currently deployed when she comes back stateside, she wants to get back into the show pen. So it's really cool that like I had this time where I was out and I was doing everything. I was in the industry and I accomplished so much. Like who shoots multiple world shows as their own business within like the first 5 years of being in business and wins awards and gets recognition from some of the top people in the industry. Like I had people I grew up looking up to in my backdrop at multiple shows and complimenting my work and have done ads for people that I've looked up to, which was crazy. And now I get to step back and I can still do portrait work. I can still do ad work, but I also get to then maybe become one of those people that little girls look up to in the show pen.
That's exciting. So on that note, if anyone is interested in working with Kelsey on her design side or booking some portraits, could you give them direction on where to find you?
Yes. So I'm based out of Northern Illinois, but I travel all over the country. I will literally go anywhere. People always ask me, when are you coming here? Like, buddy, get enough people together and I will go anywhere as long as I am being paid. So I have a lot of upcoming travel to Texas and Oklahoma. I go there a few times a year because I have a horse there. I go to New York, New England, the Northeast a few times a year, and I do a lot of work here in the Midwest. My website is norfleetmarketing.com. Norfleet is Norfleet, like the old paint horse stud, Mr. Norfleet, named after Norman. My Instagram is at Norfleet Photo. And I have been starting to get active on TikTok again. That's at Kelsey from Norfleet. I probably should be more consistent with my handles across all platforms, but it's fine. And my email is kelsey@norfleetmarketing.com.
Perfect. And I will put all of that in the show notes so everyone can easily access that. And obviously she'll be available on our website, on her profile. And I'm going to remember to interject to like, comment and follow our podcast this time because I keep forgetting. I did it.
You did it. Like we never remember that.
No.
We're so bad at this.
So
clearly we're not professionals.
You guys are doing great. You guys are doing great.
But on that note, I think we're all set here. It was really good chatting with Kelsey today.
Sweet.
Yes. Thank you for taking the time to talk with us today.
And we'll catch you all later.
Thanks.
All right, that'll be your class. Bring them in and line them up.